think an editor can highlight a kind of knowledge that's in the story that the writer's not aware of, and help make the writer more aware that knowledge is there in the work, and then they can expand on it and exploit it and use it, in a way that helps them have a much more profound experience with their own memories. I kind of go where the river lets me go, and the river's just been sending me down this writing path for a long time.
Why do you think people keep saying yes
To me,
to you?
or
Yes.
look, they say yes to me because I'm cheap. Okay, like I want to be really clear. Like I'm I'm like the McDonald's of writing. I'm passable.
No. My guest today has embarked on a mission to debunk the popular depictions of Christmas. Today, I chat with JJ Lee, former CBC host and producer and author of popular memoir, The Measure of a Man, the story of a father, a son, and a suit. JJ tells me why Better Next Year, his edited anthology of horrible Christmas stories, is significant in conversations around celebrations. We go behind the scenes of producing the work, and he tells me the secret to remaining consistent on his artistic journey. Being an artist can be a heck of a ride, but you're not alone. On Journey of the Art, we tell inspiring stories of artists and chat with those who support us on this path. I'm your host, Lola Okpataya, writer, editor, singer, and all-round lover of words. Come with me on the journey. Hi there, and welcome back to Journey of the Arts. Today I have with me JJ Lee, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the show. Welcome, JJ.
Thank you for having me, and it's great to be here today.
You're very welcome. Let's start with this quote from you that I saw on a YouTube video.
Oh no.
You said, don't worry, it's going to be good. You said, I think all good Christmas stories are bad Christmas stories. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from the idea that, if we only share perfect Christmases, it's good to have in real life, not necessarily good to have in art. Even if the
Mm,
stakes are small, like wanting a certain gift and not getting it, I think what we want is to take that not getting and make it the point of the story, or make it the centerpiece conflict of the story or event of the story, and how one negotiates their feelings about the gift giver, or trying to obtain the gift. You know, the narrator might try to attempt to guess themselves, like becomes the heart of a really powerful, wonderful story. So, perfect Christmases are difficult Christmases to write about. And I've had many, most of my life, I've had perfect Christmases. As far as I'm concerned, I love Christmas. I love the season. So, it's those small stake failures, those little things that just don't reconcile with your thoughts about the season, or the things that even your feelings about them, like, oh yeah, that you have kind of have to forget the little things to see the bigger picture. And I think and I'm talking about bad little things,
mm,
to accept the good picture. And but then you kind of have to flip that on its head, and you have to look at the bad little, if the stakes are small. Let's say you've had many great Christmases in your life. You take those small stakes and you enlarge them, and you have fun with them, because you're not going to be torn up writing about the little problems you had around a particular item. So I see that as, that's what I mean about,
mm.
a good Christmas story is a bad Christmas story. And if you have to make a mountain out of a molehill, you're highly, as an editor of an anthology, and an upcoming anthology too, called Upon a Midnight Clear, which will be the second volume in the series.
Mm.
We're looking for people to make mountains out of molehills of disappointment, I suppose.
Mm, mm. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And it leads me to the next question. Better Next Year seeks to debunk the popular depiction of Christmas while delivering its message of hope and renewal. What inspired you to take on this project? Why do you think this is so necessary?
Well, I thank you, first of all, for asking that question, because it's the one that drove the project 100%, which was I kept on hearing stories of people's difficult Christmases, and it was so beautiful. The way they held on to these bad Christmases, these imperfect moments, these sort of moments of alienation, of sadness, and they were some of them were truly outrageous. In the collection, we have one story of a young protagonist who's in a women's shelter, and so with her mother, and they kind of raid the donation box for, for themselves, and so they these like really like incredibly difficult Christmases, but told with a kind of pluck and spirit in the protagonist or in the narrator in this case, because they're true stories. So the storyteller is the protagonist, and they just have so much pluck. And I think we do that to save our Christmases. We have this kind of pluck or this determination to make the best of things in the worst of times, right? The best times, worst times. And that's made it so compelling. Like, and I seem to come across more and more. And the more I mention these incredibly sad, funny Christmas tales, I was just thinking, oh, there's a collection here. And these are not the stories that you usually hear or you always hear, because all Christmas stories are kind of sad, funny stories in the first place when you really think of it. No Christmas stories is really any good unless a person either is a total grump about Christmas or doesn't understand the
Yeah,
spirit of Christmas. And so these
yeah.
sort of dysfunctions in our idea of Christmas, but I also wanted to chamber a darker tone so that it
Mm,
wasn't a Hallmark style movie Christmas, even though I think they competently address and illustrate some of the feelings that we have about Christmas and what is a troublesome Christmas. I was finding profoundly um, difficult Christmases that were being negotiated by the writers in our anthology, and so and I in my real life as a non-fiction mentor. I kept on coming across students who were willing to share stories, and also there were people within, what we could call quote unquote the Canlit community that shared with me their worst Christmases. And so I wasn't able to employ all of them because they're Canlit people. They have agents. They have publishing deals that are important, and they make a lot more money than they'll ever make from my anthology. And so they have to kind of preserve those stories for a better day. But that let me know that it was a worthwhile topic and a rich one,
yeah, yeah, I agree.
and it
And
was exciting.
yeah, I can imagine that it's exciting because as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about colors and how Christmas is, it's a rainbow. It's an array of different colors, right? And what it seems to me that you're saying is that sometimes there's gray, in Christmas, and the grays can fit in and and make a fuller color scheme as opposed to just having all the bright colors. So I do really, really love that.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I mean, and that's I like that. I like that idea of a fuller palette of experience being manifested
Yeah,
through narrative and through memory. I like that.
yeah. Yeah, and so let's talk about curating
Mm.
the pieces, because I imagine that curating all these pieces and deciding on a short list took some effort. What did that process look like,
The
and
first
what
time,
are some of the challenges you faced?
well, okay, I'm gonna tell you, we thought of the book in March of the year it was published. So the
Oh
March the year it
wow,
and
that
it
was
just
fast.
it was too fast. And the reason why is that the I have a strong relationship with a publisher in my town, and a project didn't work out for them, but they had booked the printing schedule for a fall release. So he said, "Look, we have the presses, we have this, we can do a book. Do you want to do a book?" And we said, "Let's do it." So it was a lot of thrashing around. I went into first instance, I went into radio producer mode, and by radio producer mode, I mean that I went in the chase mode. In chase mode, we have to get a story like for the current or whatever network show or regional CBC show that day. You have to just get the story. You have to get that person today and get them on the radio by the end of the day or by the next morning. So I kind of went into chase mode and I looked for people that could help support the title either through their literary credentials, and they were amazing. The people that we were able to bring in, the my, core four, I guess you could call them, though we were engaging mostly emerging writers. So I had these four writers. Actually, I threw my name in the hat, so that was the fourth. That made it easier because I didn't have to chase another person, and it lowered the budget because I sort of ate the cost. So that allowed, you know, so I chased them down, and then just sort of said, I just begged, like, can you please write for this anthology? I want to get this. And then we put a call out in, and it took a while, like, to get through them all. We never, like, to be really frank, we never got through all the submissions. Like, we had to nail our 12 stories, and that's why actually many of the submissions that are appearing now in the second book, Upon a Night Clear, are actually from the first round. And they're wonderful stories. The other part of it is that it wasn't a literary writing contest. I wasn't looking for the best writer. I was looking for the right stories. So
Mm.
it was, there was a much more a curatorial approach, like you said. I was looking for the best mix. That not every story had to be a perfect story, even though I feel they were perfect stories. But more importantly, bringing them together in a collection is because they spoke to each other, or they balanced the whole work and showed a diversity of experiences. Some were sad. Some of the stories were really funny. Some were funny, sad, and some were ridiculous, and some were searingly, like, there was a lot of pain in the work. And so that mixture is what determined. And so this is the horrible part for a lot of the people who submitted in the first round, is that once we hit the 12, I stopped. I said, no, that's the book. Like, we're gonna move that one out the door, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
try to survive that. It came out. I finished editing on September the 30th.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it went to press, and it came out. It landed on October the 30th, right?
Wow.
So it was a brutal process. Like, it wasn't brutal because it was entirely enjoyable. Like, the writers that I engaged as contributors, and the process that we went through editing, and the type of conversations we had about their stories was just so beautiful. What, like, people have so much in them, and sometimes it kind of sucks to be a writer because it's like we don't just stand there, except me, because I'm doing a freaking soliloquy right now. But the whole point is that we are more we're more conversational. Like, if I ask you about how
Mm.
your Christmas is, I'm going to ask you questions, and then I'll make it easier for you to tell me how your Christmas was. I'm not going to go, how was your Christmas? Please talk at length for 30 minutes. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what happened was that some people sent in very notional submissions. It didn't matter. I love them. And then I would, like, for one submission, I wrote 30 questions, right?
Mm.
And they came back answering all 30 questions. And that, in many ways became the substance of the story. So that kind of really fun, like, just tell me what happened kind of writing, was
So there
amazing.
was
And
some investigation that you had to do to
yeah, I
bring
mean,
those stories out.
I felt like I had a journalistic role,
Mm.
right? As an editor, I felt I was asking questions to get the story out. That was more journalistic on some levels. And at the same time, these writers had, like, just such great moves, like such game in their stories. I'm really proud of the collection. I'm really proud of how these, many ways that, many of these people are considered emerging writers, really trotted out some amazing stories and some amazing writing. And so that was very exciting to see, because a lot of these people, came from a very, in the particular the first book, a lot of people that I came across in my own life. Um, the second book is a bit different. The journey is, we're reaching out more and more towards Ontario and the rest of the country because we want the title to really reflect a national scope. And so that, but just that said, I wouldn't dissuade anyone from looking at the first book because I like to sell them, but also because I do think, despite the regional focus of the writers, that the
Hmm.
stories, they're really good stories, and I highly encourage, anyone who never got to see the Better Next Year in the first run, if we run it again, that it'll be a fine book to have this year.
Yeah, I looked at the website and I saw that it's all sold out, so I'm sure it did very well.
Yeah, it's funny how that was. Like, it was just, we just took a stab at it, and we did it for fun, to be honest. And the best part is that the royalties go to the Surrey International Writers Conference Fund. The money from that fund is held by the Vancouver Foundation, and they give an endowment to the Surrey Public Library's Youth Writing Fund, and
Oh, that's
writing
awesome.
contest. So it's really amazing. Yes.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as you were going through that process and selecting the stories, what are some things that made you feel this is a good story? Was it the
Oh,
tone? Was it, can you talk about that?
I love the hook. I love like I'm always attracted by easy storytelling style, like a person who,
Mm,
who just wants to tell a story. It just makes it easier for me to read, right? I'm not trying to guess what they're trying to do. But even better than that is just like, oh yeah, I'm working on in a Furby call center on Christmas Eve. It's like, okay, let's do it. Like, let's do this.
yeah.
Let's do this story. And I think, and I teach that. It's like, you know what? Like, you can be a great, and we talked about this, I think, and I don't mean to reference our previous conversations in the past, but I think we talked about like being, there are people who may be strong writing group writers, like they get lauded possibly because they write impressively, right?
Yeah.
But the hooks aren't there. Like they're, you know what I mean? Like the like
Yeah.
this is a story about dot dot dot, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we have those dot 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 parts in place, it makes it so fun because there's a kind of a clarity and an energy in both the edit and in the writing and in the
Yeah.
discussion between the two, the editor and the writer, that is very fruitful for both the project and for the writer themselves because they get to have fun. It's like the superstructure is there, and it's just like, yeah, though that's a good chord change. Let's do it. Let's write a
Yeah.
song. Like let's make something happen here. And I think that's what I'm looking for is like good chord changes. If
Mm,
that's a musical way to put it, is that you just know, oh yeah, this is a 3 minute banger. This is going to be a good song. And so I think that's kind of what we're exploring and what I am attracted to. Of course, sometimes, there are the other stories you go where like this is very it's more ruminative and they're really chewing on a bone on something. My story's a bit like that. I didn't even know what I was writing about. It took a long time, 2 years to write that story, and it was something that finally got published, and then we took it from and we added it to collection and expanded it, and that was a really rich experience for me to just have the opportunity to explore the meaning of the story that I wrote because I don't even know. And
mm,
I think that goes for both the other contributors to the an anthology, is that I think an editor can highlight a kind of knowledge that's in the story that the writer's not aware of, and help make the writer more aware that knowledge is there in the work, and then
yeah,
they
for
can
sure.
expand on it and exploit it and use it, in a way that helps them have a much more profound experience with their own memories, which I find extremely rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about those rewards. When you reflect on the work better next year, I know you mentioned some things already, but what are some things that you are most proud of when you think about that work?
I know that I won't say who, but there was one submission that was 628 words, and it expanded to 3,000 words, just through
Wow.
like appropriate questions that really like it was such a good hook, and it was such a great writer. It's like, oh yeah, like yes, this is what I'd like to know based on what happened that night. And I'm going through that process with some writers right now for the next book, and we're very notional. So there was one writer I approached to contribute because I just knew they had it in them, and I just said, look, like, can you tell me about this time? And we just talked about it, and I recorded that conversation, and then I wrote 30 questions. I said, just answer the email. Don't even think you're writing a story. Just because when I love when a
Wow.
magazine or something goes, hey, these are the questions. Will you write? And then like I just bang it out like in an hour. These like you answer the questions because it's just doing an interview, right, or whatever. And
Mm,
then it's like, oh, I actually like what I said there. Like it was like I just something let go. You let go. Oh, I'm writing something important. Oh, I've got to be the artist that I think I am. All the stuff you kind of let go of it, and
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
communicating. You're actually talking to someone for real, and talking to someone for real can't go wrong because you're being legit. You're kind of being
Yeah.
as honest as you can be, and this idea of craft gets put aside to a much more natural. No one wants to talk and be boring, but that's
Mm,
not craft. Just a human thing. Like I want you to
yeah,
be engaged. I want to be engaged, and to communicate in that way is actually at the heart of craft, right?
yeah.
It's the stories we tell around the fire. And so I think that's what, the thing I'm most proud of, that there was this natural storytelling style among so many of the stories. And this little 628, word notion became this full-fledged, really powerful, beautiful story that was disturbing for the person because they didn't really want to get into it on some level because it's memoir. And then at the same
Yeah.
time, it was really a beautiful thing that was written. And I'm so proud of that writer and what they were able to do with such an incredible prompt. Like, just like a silly, like really incredibly demanding prompt. Hey, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. Will you write? And it's like they did. And it's like, and it's kind of like having a race car. Like all you do is tap the gas and all of a sudden it goes like 120 miles an hour. And I think that's what happened is that, some of the writers I asked to join the project were like really just primed to rocket launch into this
Mm.
tale. They didn't even know they were ready to go, but they were crazy ready to go, like big time ready to go. And that was an incredible experience.
You talk about these writing prompts, and you've said it not once and not twice. You said 30 questions, 30 questions.
Yeah.
Why 30 questions?
I do stupid things like flip through books and notice that there are 37 chapters in them and stuff like that. Like 32 to 37 is like that. Yeah, it's a book.
Yeah.
You do 32 to 37 chapters, like 20. I've seen 27, but I don't like saying 27. It just sounds too. It's one of those skinny books. But like I just to me it breaks it up into three acts. Maybe eight
Mm,
questions in the last act, and then it'll be 30, so 12 and 12. I don't even know. I'm not even doing the math properly, but, you know, um, 11 and 11. Yeah, 11, 11, 8. Does that, I don't even know if I'm getting the right numbers there. That gives me 30. Those kinds of things, like, I just feel like, I mean, literally, that's what it was. That's why I'm
yeah.
quite sure it was like I just did one for the new one and it ended up being 33 questions,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
love that idea of three acts.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
And it's interesting. My questions are semi related to the like a classic CBC interview style. Now, classic
Mm,
CBC interview style for 1 hour, you only need 9 questions, like which is hard to believe. Like for a 1 hour interview, you only need 9 questions. Um, and but in writing, it's a bit more difficult because you have a kind of precision. Both though are arced. So the way I was trained is you ask questions that create an arc. And so what I've been thinking about is the role of questions in an editing perspective. And I really, the second I hear a great hook, I call it tropic thinking because I think in tropes. Oh, this is like 16 Candles, or oh, this is like I'm gonna do all like John Hughes films, but just bear with me. Or this is
you're
like
good.
this is like Say Anything, right?
Mm,
Or this is like, so like to me, like they get slotted in my mind. Oh, this is that kind of movie, for a lack of a better analogy. And like I don't know how many times I talk about John Wick when I'm talking to my writing students, and they're going like, "What is going on here? Why is he talking about John Wick?" But the point is that if someone tells me that in university they stole signage from a porn shop, right? I go heist film. That's
yes.
that is a what happens in a heist film, and I just go boom, 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 and then just all the questions that relate to heist films come out of me,
Mm,
right? And it's like, now you could be wrong, right? You could be wrong. It could be the wrong analogy. It could be the wrong trope. But I love you can, and so you can make adjustments. You can shift the trope over to, oh, it's not that one, it's this one, and so I really love that way of analyzing narrative because it's, first of all, it's fun, right? And it actually stimulates the writer because there are angles that maybe within a more literary or a more ruminative um, context of writing, they would never even engage in it. Like when I write, and I'm working on a thing called Freedom 55, because I turned 55, and of course I'm gonna have to, like, I always go, where's my self-doubt moment? Like, where's that moment in the story? I'm gonna look for it. And so I always talk about something called the well, like the bottom of the story. And it's not like the bottom of the action. It's like, no, like when do you feel shittiest in the story,
Mm.
right? So those are things that like fit slot into trope like thinking, or like narrative itself is a form, right? We always
Yeah.
talk about, oh,
Yeah.
this is poetry, and this, like, no, narrative is a form as well. It's not the only kind of writing that exists, right?
Yeah.
But we tend to act like it's the primo number one. And and I think maybe I give too much weight to narrative, but I do enjoy it, and I love finding projects that really dip into actual storytelling.
Yeah.
So, uh, I don't know if I answered your question there, but
You did.
I
You
hope I
did
did.
answer
Okay,
my
good.
question.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
did answer my question. So, JJ, let's talk about some lessons learned.
Oh my gosh.
Better next year.
Hmm.
How has it impacted you personally?
Oh, that's a great question. Like it's changed my life a lot. Like I didn't know I was an anthology editor. I'd never been an editor before. Ever. Like, oh no, that's not true. I lie. I I was the arts editor for my university newspaper, like in the 90s, like 90, maybe 89, 1990, 91, something like that.
Mm.
And so that was the last time I actually really edited anything, I believe. Yeah. I've been a consultant, a story consultant, and, help people develop their projects. I guess you could conceptual edit or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what your business is, but you know how that works. But,
Yeah, I do.
like direct a project.
Structural editing.
Yeah, yeah. So, we've talked about this, I think, in the past. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes, we have.
uh, that kind of like, making sure the ship is actually going in the right direction and landing. And
Yeah.
like, you know how to write now. Just, go ahead, write it now. Like, you should be able to get to the island. Like, yeah, writers are good sailors. They're just terrible navigators, right? I
That is a
rarely,
great way to put it.
yeah, you know,
That
a
is a
lot.
great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, you're off course. It's like, I'm glad that the ship isn't sinking, but it's off course. So, what did I learn from doing that? Well, I didn't learn I was an editor, and it's changed my life because I am an editor now, and I've become an acquiring editor for Tidewater, the same publisher
Mhm.
as the anthology. Um, I love nurturing emerging writers. I find it exciting. I don't like saying no to people. I'm always about the yes, and there's always a way to get to yes, but it's not easy. And so I'm looking for people who are willing to sort of engage in that process of finding a way to get to yes. Even if it's not for me, I don't really care if it goes to Tidewater or not. It's like, just make sure your project is good and you have fun writing it. Like, I really do
Yeah.
care about writers and their journey, but also care about readers and their journeys through the book. And so those two things together sort of, makes me feel like that's what I'm shepherding, is the reader experience and the writer experience. That was exciting for me. I know I'm very proud of the book. I know anyone who actually takes the time to read it will feel quite rewarded having read it, because the stories are just terrific. I wish all of them could be made into little Christmas movies. Um,
Maybe it'll
and
happen.
yeah, yeah, well, it's okay. I don't see a dime anyway, so that happens. But the point is, I think that people have it in them. Like, I think just it takes a willingness to believe in narrative and the demands of
Mm.
narrative, and that's hard. Like, for a lot of people, it's hard to say that's a formula. I don't believe in the formula. And it's like, maybe you're right. You know, I'm pretty, I'm very unoriginal in that way. Uh, but I know the form is really, I love reading it. I know lots of people love reading it, and when I mean narrative, I'm talking about storytelling. I'm talking like save the cat structures, like real
Yeah.
basic
Yeah.
stuff. A lot of people don't write that way. I don't know why. They just don't. They just don't have it in them. They got to do something more complicated. It makes me think of it made me realize how much I love the form and how I like the natural storyteller. So
Mm.
yeah, like that's the big thing I learned. I mean, also I learned I was a little bit bossy in that I could be a tad intrusive. Um, yeah, so like I
It's
feel
just you
bad.
being a
Like,
journalist.
yeah, no, but then, like because it gets into the area of authorship and like people,
Yeah.
I guess it's like,
Yeah.
oh, am I being too bossy? Like, am I asking too much of them? And I don't know what to say. I think that an editor can have a curatorial role.
Yes.
right? And that's a weird thing, and a lot of writers don't want to hear that, I suppose. Or maybe they do. I loved having Anita Chong edit me at McCullen and Stewart. Like my last 200 pages of my own memoir was written in 3 months because they pushed the publishing schedule so hard that I never really got a chance to, over edit or even like write multiple drafts of the last two-thirds of the book. I just had to bang it out. And so I did. I mean, my first draft was only the draft that got the project rolling to the end was only 100 pages.
Wow.
So when they said no, they read the 100 pages. It's like, no, it's coming out this September. They told me this in January. It's coming out in September. Finish the book by March. And then it was just the wildest run of getting a first draft done. And
Wow.
then, so I only ever got to one draft 1.5 really, like for the last 200 pages,
Wow.
like I think I was editing on the galleys. That's how fast it was. And then I was like photographing. Why am I talking about this? I think I'm talking about the idea of, just being locked in and,
Yes.
and having fun with that speed
Yes.
and of storytelling. I don't know how I got
Yes.
to I don't know what I was talking about. We'd have to look over the notes to see why I'm talking about that. But Anita, so no, sorry, just to be clear, we were talking about the whole Brian Eno YouTube problem, right? It's not a problem,
Exactly.
but it was, like, who the producer is. Why is that? Like, should an editor be invisible? And I'm gonna. Anita Chong played a big role in the way Measure looks, and I'm totally happy with
Mm.
that. Like, it's so I do feel bad if I'm being too forceful as an editor, but I kind of asked my editor to be forceful with me. So I come from a kind of a legacy of this not interventionist style, but sometimes like you see on like Instagram, oh my God, look at Faulkner's edits. Look how Faulkner was edited. And you go, oh, the editor, look what he did. Like, he changed
Mm.
everything. And it's just like, oh, I don't know if it was Faulkner, but one of those guys.
Mm.
And it was like a big deal. Like, oh, is this the editor's work? Or is it, I don't know if it was Faulkner. I feel bad. It's like that period, Americana, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like classic
Yeah.
American canon, right? And I I just think that's kind of silly. It's like, you know what? Like, as long as I get to, and I hope so. I'm looking for writers that feel comfortable with that. I'm not. It's not for everybody. I don't recommend it for everybody. I think there are, important writers that need to say it exactly the way they need to say it,
Yeah.
and they don't need
Yeah.
a editor like me getting in the way of that.
Yeah. I agree.
Which
It's not
is
for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what do you do? Like, like I know, like how do you step out of the way? Like you sometimes have to go, this is not my style of editing. I got to step out of your way. Like you need somebody else, like a more sensible and more sensitive person, you know? Um, and and that's hard to know, right? Like it's hard to know if you're being. I had a lesson recently about that. Like, I did an edit, and the a writer really didn't like it, and it took them a long time to feel comfortable and trust me again. Um, so that's interesting to go through that process, and I don't know how to fix that when it happens when the trust gets broken because the edits are too aggressive. But I think that's something I think all editors need to be wary of.
Yeah.
It's
For sure.
you can't be you can't be slapdash on people's feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or their
Definitely.
art, or their art.
It's like
Yeah,
a dance, I think, sometimes.
yeah,
It's yeah. It's very delicate.
yeah. And I think an editor has to be smart. They have to kind of know who they are too. Like, look, I'm not Mr. Sensitive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not. Like, I'm just. God, I sound like Kevin O'Leary. I'm not Mr. Sensitive. I'm sorry. I'm the Simon Cowell of editing. Yeah. but the point. So, but you know what I mean? It's just like you should know yourself too, and that should help
Yes.
you find the right
Absolutely.
clients. If we're talking to an editing audience here, yeah, you just be you have you're always going to be yourself anyways. Like no matter how much like mental training
That's
you
true.
give, like when push comes to shove, it's kind of like boxing. You become the boxer you really are on the punch. And
Yeah.
even if you're training yourself to be more patient, to be more open to, like to really be more gentle and suggestive to the writer rather than saying, hey, can you change this now? Like, like that sort of, or let me change it because, I don't want to do this dance. Like,
Yeah.
like that's how I grew up. I was trained that way. Like, I remember. and I'm pretty sure we talked about this. My CBC editor, like literally grabbing me by the shoulders and like talking into my ear and making me change lines for an intro or a script that I was writing. And it's just like fine. It's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it done. And it's not for everyone. I don't even recommend it. I don't even know why we're talking about it. Don't do it. It's rude. Stop doing it. Don't become this man. Do not become him. Do become this person. It's the wrong idea.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, to round things off, JJ,
Sure.
you've
Sure.
been creating art for a considerable amount of time.
Hmm.
What keeps you going? What
Oh yeah.
How have you stayed on the journey of artistry?
Through a vow of poverty, I suppose. I mean, no, I'm being serious. Like, I am writing this story about turning 55 and like my kind of entire, financial failure, um, and failings, I suppose. Uh, I've, if you, what keeps me going is that people still want me to go. I
Mm.
suppose if I don't know if I'm that
How do you
brave
know
anymore.
that people still want you to go?
I don't pitch anymore. People call me and say, "Hey, do you have a story?" And I'll just go, yeah, and then go, good. Well, due 2 weeks from now. It's kind of like nearly like that. Like it's getting to that level
Mm.
of like we just want you to be in our magazine this month or this week or this season. And like I don't write a lot, and I don't think I need to write a lot. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've been cobbling to get a lot of teaching opportunities. So I'm trying to, I write these sort of small personal stories, a lot of them for a very, a regional magazine called Monte Cristo, whom I love. Like, I love the editorial staff, I love the team there. And they just say, yeah, go ahead, write. And it's just such a gift. So I'm
Mm.
very lucky that way. It's not a lot of money, but it keeps me feeling like a writer. So that's enough for me. And I was wondering if I wasn't teaching, I'd probably stop writing like 100%. I'd be slinging hot dogs. I'm not joking. There's a really good poutine place around the corner, and I would like beg for a job there if I had the time. I would beg to work there full on. And I know it sounds crazy, but or wild. I don't like the word crazy sometimes. I don't think it's very nice, but sorry about that. But I think it would be just exciting, I've always been like that. Like I kind of go where the river lets me go. And the river's just been sending me down this writing path for a long time. It's a small creek that's drying out, but I'm still on it, and I don't know. I'm happy with that. I'm okay. I'll survive.
Mm.
So what keeps me going is that people keep on saying yes to me. That's what keeps me going. Maybe I'm not the strong moral character that would, you know, sound like some of my incredible students over the years. People who, have a dream, a vision, and they're pursuing it and to become a better writer. And they come back and they're always working on their craft and they're always looking for opportunities to share their work. And it's just, there's so much commitment. It's really beautiful what they can do. I suppose if second I started slinging hot dogs, steamies with a great coleslaw on it and a bit of mustard and ketchup, I would go home and write. And I would be happy. I would be happy. I don't need to, it's funny. I don't need to do what we're doing right now, like this conversation. I don't need to be that guy. Um, I really, like, I got my kids, I got a roof over my head, and my son's tuition's paid for at SFU. So, I'm a happy camper. You know what? I'm past the. I have one more swing at the big one, and then I'll just muddle along and wait for another opportunity if they come anymore. I don't even know if they will.
Why do you think people keep saying yes
To me
to you?
or
Yes.
oh well I
Because I
think I
think
try.
there's something to be said for the fact that people keep saying yes to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, they say yes to me because I'm cheap. Okay, like I want to be really clear. Like I'm I'm like the McDonald's of writing. I'm passable.
No, JJ,
Yeah, no,
no.
no, no. Like like on a writing front, the yes comes because like I don't overthink it. I try to get it done. Um, the
So
yes
you show
become
up.
Yeah, I do my best sometimes. Like I said, this has been a weird summer. I think the heat's really melted my brain, and I think maybe I'm a little under the weather emotionally. around being 55 and just being a very mediocre, low tier Canadian CanLit writer, but it's fun. Like I mean, I love writing when I allow myself to write, which takes a lot of energy. And I've been very lucky to have people support my fiction as well, even in a smaller press context.
Mm.
So to the point where no one's ever even heard of me writing that stuff, right? But it's there, and I just feel it makes me feel like I'm a writer, and in a way that's good. Like, sometimes I worry about revenue. Um, we live a very modest life. I live in a rental home, and like I build my own furniture, and it's kind of like Gilligan's Island here. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't get that. Like, so, oh my God, I saw, I won't say who, but a great Canadian nonfiction, like a giant of Canadian nonfiction, showed me her writing deck at her cottage in Ontario. Oh my gosh, it looked like uh, it it was like a cabin, like just the wood, and there was like a sailing ship under glass, in the middle.
Wow.
It just so the
Wow.
table was just this antique wood, and it's like, oh, is that what happens when you write like professionally? Is that what it looks like when you really work hard and you
Wow.
write? It's just like, and it's just so I'm never, I don't have that, and sometimes I worry that I should have had that, but you know it's okay. I'm gonna totally put that image in my story now for the magazine. That Freedom 50 from a Freedom 55 story. But
But it
yeah,
sounds to me like contentment, and that's not a bad thing.
my students make me happy. All
Mm.
my students, they really do. They really do. I just love watching their journeys into publishing. It's been really exciting. Some of them have, really lit a fuse or a bomb, and it's gone off. They've blown up big, and so it's exciting for me to watch them do it. I can't claim any. I don't know. I'm a bystander. Like I don't know. Like you always want to feel proud, but then you have to check yourself and go, look, they did it, not you.
Mm.
Chill out. And that's a weird thing to think about. But yeah, you know, like I get a lot of contentment from. You're right. There's contentment. I'm still productive. I'm hustling. I got other things to do. I'm shooting video. I talk. I do Instagram on memoir, which no one watches because I don't know if you've ever searched hashtag memoir on YouTube or
You should
Instagram.
go on TikTok. You should go on TikTok. I think
Yeah,
you'll find
it's
an
my
audience there.
oh my God. I'm gonna have to get a burner account to do TikTok. But okay, I create a new identity for myself so I can do it because I don't want that to be overlinked. Maybe I should do that. But that's you know I keep going because I get those yeses, and those yeses come. I'm not sure why. You're right. I don't. I mean, I guess it's because I say yes back to them. I'm
Mm.
not giving anyone a hard time. Maybe that's what it's about. I don't know.
Thank you so much, JJ. I've enjoyed that conversation,
No,
and I
I always
look
enjoy.
forward to the next installment of the series. What's
Thank
it
you.
called again?
It's going to be called Upon a Midnight Clear.
Upon a Midnight Clear. Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. On the next episode, I'll be chatting with another inspiring artist. But before then, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you think about this show and this episode. Feel free to drop me a note here or send me a DM on Instagram at Journey of the Art Pod. Finally, please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow and rate the show if you're listening elsewhere. Help me connect with other artists who need a dose of inspiration today. Until next time, stay on the journey of your art.